The old horses turned their heads and looked like grandmothers at the young ones. But the colts ran about excited on their gangling legs and stared and wondered. They all knew Almanzo. Their ears pricked up and their eyes shone softly when they saw him. The 3-year-olds came eagerly and thrust their heads out to nuzzle at him. Their noses, prickled with a few stiff hairs, were soft as velvet, and on their foreheads the short, fine hair was silky smooth. Their necks arched proudly, firm and round, and the black manes fell over them like a heavy fringe. You could run your hand along those firm, curved necks in the warmth under the mane. But Almanzo hardly dared to do it. He was not allowed to touch the beautiful 3-year-olds. He could not go into their stalls, not even to clean them. Father would not let him handle the young horses or the colts. Father didn't trust him yet, because colts and young unbroken horses are very easily spoiled. A boy who didn't know any better might scare a young horse, or tease it, or even strike it, and that would ruin it. It would learn to bite and kick and hate people, and then it would never be a good horse. Almanzo did know better. He wouldn't ever scare or hurt one of those beautiful colts. He would always be quiet and gentle and patient. He wouldn't startle a colt or shout at it, not even if it stepped on his foot. But Father wouldn't believe this. So Almanzo could only look longingly at the eager 3-year-olds. He just touched their velvety noses, and then he went quickly away from them and put on his barn frock over his good school clothes. Father had already watered all the stock, and he was beginning to give them their grain. Royal and Almanzo took pitchforks and went from stall to stall, cleaning out the soiled hay underfoot and spreading fresh hay from the manger to make clean beds for the cows and the oxen and the calves and the sheep. They did not have to make beds for the hogs, because hogs make their own beds and keep them clean. In the south barn, Almanzo's own 2 little calves were in one stall. They came crowding each other at the bars when they saw him. Both calves were red, and one had a white spot on his forehead. Almanzo had named him Star. The other was a bright red all over, and Almanzo called him Bright. Star and Bright were young calves, not yet a year old. Their little horns had only begun to grow hard in the soft hair by their ears. Almanzo scratched around the little horns because calves like that. They pushed their moist, blunt noses between the bars and licked with their rough tongues. Almanzo took 2 carrots from the cow's feed box and snapped little pieces off them and fed the pieces one by one to Star and Bright. Then he took his pitchfork again and climbed into the hay mows overhead. It was dark there. Only a little light came from the pierced tin sides of the lantern hung in the alleyway below. Royal and Almanzo were not allowed to take a lantern into the hay mows for fear of fire, but in a moment they could see in the dusk. They worked fast, pitching hay into the mangers below. Almanzo could hear the crunching of all the animals eating. The hay mows were warm with the warmth of all the stock below, and the hay smelled dusty sweet. There was a smell, too, of the horses and cows, and a woolly smell of the sheep. And before the boys finished filling the mangers, there was the good smell of warm milk foaming into Father's milk pail. Almanzo took his own little milking stool and a pail and sat in Blossom's stall to milk her. His hands were not yet strong enough to milk a hard milker, but he could milk Blossom and Bossy. They were good old cows who gave down their milk easily and hardly ever switched a stinging tail into his eyes or upset the pail with a hind foot. He sat with the pail between his feet and milked steadily. Left, right, swish, swish, the streams of milk slanted into the pail while the cows licked up their grain and crunched their carrots. The barn cats curved their bodies against the corners of the stall loud.